It's like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good analogy.
Brett Gurwitz behind the controls. This is Brett.
I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend on for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sound like Shonen knife. Never feel though I said all night. I gotta ride. Each time I said all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I'll come back to you and do the things you do. Stay all night. I gotta ride. Each time I stay all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you better get down on yours.
Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah. You think?
This is not mine.
Stand all night, I gotta ride. Each time I stand all night, no, I just might. You make me stand all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stand all night. I'm gonna stand all night.
R.I.P. Todd.
Text the round robin your questions, comments, wagers. Give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the round robin 757-354-5517.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing us that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the brave and the home of the brave.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
You are tuned in to the Round Robin with Stephen Murray on Deep End Broadcasting.
Still seeking Bible, not before my praises on the bed. Way up ahead, I see the crowd and flashing blue red lights. I'd rather see the college outside.
Good morning on this Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Wherever you are listening to us around the world, this is the Round Robin on the Deep End Broadcasting Network, live from our Chicks Beach studios in the lovely Virginia Beach, Virginia, the United States of America. Our first show of 2025, a NFL special Saturday edition, starting to look at everything, including the two games today with Week 18 in the National Football League. Welcome. Hopefully you had a good holiday. If you are anything like me, you feel like this is your fifth weekend in a row. We had the one weekend, and then we had Christmas in the middle of the week, another weekend, New Year's in the middle of the next week. And here we are on the fifth weekend in a row. And hopefully everyone is surviving out there. Hopefully everyone still has money in their pocket from the holidays. If you've been listening to this show, you've been winning money as well. Hopefully you had on the last show, which was, we talked about a million times, Adam Thielen for 2, Mike Evans for 2. That was the sure two-headed lock. I definitely had those guys. I had them hooked with Jonathan Taylor as well. But the problem when you do these long round robins, if you have two guys in the same game, you better kind of mix them up individually with a couple other players and actually parlay them themselves amongst each other, just the Evans and the Thielen. And I could have sworn I had an Evans and a Thielen 2-game parlay with 2 touchdowns. But upon further review, maybe I just have too many tickets, too much action going on. Somewhere along the way, I slipped up, and I don't think I ever played it. Either that or the sportsbook deleted it, one of the two. Nevertheless, I'm not going to count that as a win. I'll count it as a push, since we still were successful with bringing home a win last week, a small win. So that will take our season record now to winning weekends, a total of 13. I'm sorry, that is not correct. Winning weekends, a total of 10. Losing weekends, a total of 3. And pushes, or about break-even weekends, a total of 4. And you know what? I count the pushes and the ties as a win myself, to be honest. But 10, 3, and 4 if you're counting overall. If you're new to the program, here's what we do. We look at every game, every angle on the board. We're not doing your little 2-minute snippets. We need to take our time and kind of methodically go through all the information. So this show preaches a lot of patience, and we bring you content all morning long. Now, on the Saturday edition here, we'll just focus on the 2 games primarily. We'll take a little bit of a look at tomorrow. The fact is, a lot of lines that still are being withheld since it is Week 18 and a tougher week. So we will need to be on top of everything tomorrow with the active players, the inactives, and everything else of that nature. And we will be with you all morning long on a Sunday trying to win what is a tricky week for everybody. Players, sportsbook, even the coaches themselves with their game plans and how they handle things. Every team has a different circumstance. I mean, you got teams trying not to lose the number 1 draft pick, teams trying to finagle seeding in the playoffs, and you still have 2 teams with just 2 losses on the season battling it out for a division title. And one of those teams will end up with 3 losses and will have to hit the road in the playoffs. So again, that's what this show is. We look at every angle, everything on the board. We come to you early Sundays, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we're your first look at weather, your first look at line moves. I'll bring the show to start early, bring the show along to start early, just to kind of feed the beast of what I was looking for, and that is early live content that's not on the replay. We're not sitting here talking about closing line value, trying to get, Is there a 3? Is there a 2.5 out there? Obviously, that kind of stuff matters. But our specialty is this, literally, and it's frowned upon. A lot of people don't like it. They'll say we're stupid. But the simple fact is this, is that we can take our $10 and we can turn it into 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. And in a case a few weeks back, a very minimal bet of about $20, turning it into a nice 5-figure payout just off $20. So you do the math in your head. Can you pick 3 or 4 or 5 football games, maybe move the spreads around a little bit, get some nice plus money odds? Say you bet $10, you can turn that into, $5,000 on a round robin. That's great. You bank 5,000. That means basically you have another 500 attempts until you get into the negative. And if you don't think that we can't find another winning play within those 500 attempts, then you're sadly mistaken, as we have been free rolling all season long since week 2 here on the round robin. All right, so that's the gist of this program. We will parlay. We will same game parlay. We'll do everything that they tell us we shouldn't be doing. But that is the way to invest for the minimum, make the maximum, and surely we can do all of that before you can go down to the 7-Eleven and put $10 on a scratcher and get a $250 payout via the state lottery. We will win you that $250 about 1,000 times over before you hit that scratcher ticket. Okay, so what do we have on the slate here? We have college football that we have a Final Four with. I haven't taken on Notre Dame, so I'm happy with that. Hopefully they can carry through with everything else. They'll get Penn State, a good matchup for them. Those 2 games, in fact, I will talk about those for a minute, since it is kind of Saturday and we have a college football feel. And I'll get into this with Dave Del Grande a little bit here in a few minutes, as he will join us from Castro Valley, California. We'll go over some hot topics and talk about the 2 games today, and then we'll bring him back on tomorrow for the rest of the slate. But if you look at the college football games, what do we have? We have Notre Dame minus 1.5 at 46.5. Doesn't that just sound like an under game right off the bat? I mean, it literally does with these 2 teams with good defenses, ball control offense, counter-punch type of football game. And then you have the talent on the other side with Ohio State with their speed, Texas with some athletes as well. And that over-under is at 53.5, Ohio State minus 5.5. So where the under smells like a perfect play for Notre Dame, Penn State in that type of game, 53.5 seems like a very cheap over for Ohio State and Texas. You feel like they could almost blink and get over that number in these 2 games coming up in just about a week. Thursday night is the Notre Dame game. I think they do this good. I like the fact that we, have Thursday football and we have a Friday night football game again as well before we get into wild card weekend with the NFL next week. Programming note for next week with the wild cards, we will come on Saturday and Sunday. In previous years, we've just done the Saturday edition, but I think we're sorely missed on Sunday mornings. And it gets quite boring around the studio when we're not on Sunday mornings, quite frankly. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and be a part of your Saturday and Sunday morning as well. Nephew Dave is watching us, so thank you, Nephew Dave. We'll get your take here after we get done with Dave Del Grande here in a few minutes. So good college games. Happy to see them on Thursday and Friday before wild card weekend is the moral of that. One thing I did not touch on last week is Greg Gumbel and his passing away. The Ants man cried about 5 times, and understandably. I mean, that is if you're part of my childhood anyway, you saw Greg Gumbel's first game. I mean, you literally did. You're like,
oh, wait, this is Brian Gumbel's brother. I mean, he's going to do the studio, and then he goes out and does, after the studio, he goes into the play-by-play booth. He does basketball as well. But his voice, very, very noticeable. You know what his voice is when you hear it. One of the great play-by-play guys of the last few decades, and we're sorry to see him pass away. And prayers out to his family. You see these guys from our childhood. John Madden now passed away. Pat Summerall was a great announcer. Greg Gumbel. And that list will just kind of grow as we go through the years here. And just makes you reflect, man. What good times we had back then when things just seemed so much simpler than what they are right now. I mean, you're talking about today's day and age of drones and AI and a million different things flying around the sky. No one knows what's going on. Terrorist attacks left and right, it seems. Axis of evil powers out there. I mean, you almost feel like we're on the verge of World War III at some point. Our own administration at times questioning what the hell is going on there. So Greg Gumbel kind of brings you back to yesteryear, much simpler times, and definitely a sad story with his loss. All right, so what we have today, too, is some cold weather. I mean, boy, it is brutal out here. And if you think that it's not going to be cold in Baltimore or Pittsburgh, then you are sadly mistaken. Let's see what we have potential for snow, because that is something I have not looked at. Of course, I've been doing a bad job with our weather here on the Deep End Broadcasting Network, as I am the weatherman, the producer, the technical engineer, the host. But weatherman, for a show that proclaims to have the first good look at weather, I do not do a very good job here in the last couple of weekends trying to get a good updated weather report. And of course, on my phone, the browser app is nowhere to be found every time I look for it nowadays. So Pittsburgh weather is what we're going to be concerned with the most tonight. There's a slight chance of precipitation this evening, so around 20%. So that tells me maybe some flurries, perhaps. A little bit of wind, and definitely cold, 21 degrees. So that is going to be a potential issue with the weather. And then Baltimore, windier, but a little bit warmer, 31 degrees, but 18-mile-per-hour winds in Baltimore. And it is pretty windy and gusty here in Virginia Beach, which, Baltimore's 4 or 5 hours away. It's not like they're in our backyard. We can definitely have two types of different weather. But I'll tell you what, man, that cold wind definitely gives you a little bit of a bite. I was out earlier this morning getting a coffee. So you're wondering how that might play as far as totals go and some of the things that we have happening for these games. Right now, Baltimore is all the way up now to a 19.5-point favorite. That is about the record. The Tom Brady Patriots would have spreads of 21, 24. I remember they were a 24-point favorite over the Eagles one night. I think only winning that game by 7 points or so on Sunday Night Football, if I remember correctly. That was so long ago at this point. But 19.5 is as big as it gets. I mean, you have Bailey Zappi in here for Cleveland. What kind of effort are we going to get from them? I mean, Zappi probably playing to keep his career alive. So you would think he'd want to go out there and try to chuck it to Judy and just try to let it rip out there. But the Ravens might just try to stymie all that from the get-go with their running game, keep it simple, keep it on the ground. I think any way you dice it, you probably get the Ravens to score their points here. I have a feeling Cleveland is not going to cover the spread, regardless. I think the Ravens are good for 35 points no matter what. Their team total in this game is 30.5. So I think that they can get there just with the team total and not worry about the spread. In fact, if you're playing this game, I think that's the way to do it, is to take the Ravens over 30.5. Because basically, if you're laying 19.5 as the other option, What do you have to do? So you win by 20 and you have to shut them out. I mean, you got to give them credit for at least 7. And if that's the case, then you need to score 27 to cover the spread. So you might as well just take 30.5. Figuring that if the Browns even go on somewhat of a scoring run, that Baltimore will have to score themselves to keep them out of arm's distance and clinch the AFC North title, which is at stake this evening, in those two cities of Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So I think the team points is the better route to take with Baltimore today. Again, if they get a big lead, when do they pull their starters? I mean, you're looking at Derrick Henry for a touchdown at -230. You're looking at Zay Flowers plus 135, Mark Andrews plus 155, Lamar Jackson plus 165. I kind of like him for a touchdown today, to be honest. He'll probably run it in at some point. And then there's old Keaton Mitchell. I think we're going to have an angle on him as well with Dave Del Grande. We'll get to that. I'll say this. With Week 18 specifically, we talked about how tricky it can be, not knowing who's going to play. You know, it almost has a preseason type of feel to it. In some aspects, we do know the starters. Others, we don't. Games like Green Bay and Baltimore, when do they pull the starters if they have a good enough lead? I'll say this. I have a great working list of notes on players who could see significant playing time or get into the end zone, who you otherwise might not think would maybe even a better chance today. For example, how about Patrick Ricard? You don't think the Ravens get up to a big lead and maybe try to reward him at some point? 25-1 for an anytime touchdown for the fullback Ricard today, as he could see significant action in the second half, especially if this is a blowout for them. How about Bailey Zappi, 11-1? He could maybe try to run it in if the Browns get close. Scramble, let me break contain and try to run it in. So I think there are some interesting angles. The Ricard one's very fascinating. Just $10 with you, 250. I mean, you almost feel like you're priced in on that. In fact, I'm going to have to just put $10 on that. Excuse me. As you can probably hear it in my voice as well, as this winter weather and these holidays, and everyone in this area is sick. I actually feel fine. I feel like we were sicker 3 weeks ago, but you can definitely hear my voice is a little jacked up here. 25-1 for Ricard for a touchdown is an interesting number to me. I think the Ravens go up. The Browns might score a little bit, and the Ravens just kind of coast home. That's kind of the feel I'm going to get on this game. All that being said, I would take the Ravens team total over. Now, this game is interesting. We have the Bengals still alive. They are a favorite, the Bengals. This is the system play. Now, by definition, this is a system play, but I'll give you that but. This is Week 18, so I think you have to throw it out. The only other time I've seen the system play on Week 18, it was a loser, and this was with Brett Favre and the Vikings when they were on the road as a favorite with the worst record at the Bears. I think that was the Rex Grossman Bears at that time. So the system play is this. What is it lost now? Just twice? Is it 10-2 in the last 3 years on the show? I want to say that's the case. So I think it's 10-2 the last 3 years on the show, and it lost its last time out. So it was 10-1. All right. So it is the Bengals who have the worst record. The Steelers have the better record. The team with the worst record is on the road, and they are the favorite against the team with the home record. Normally, this would be an auto play for Cincinnati. You don't ask any questions. Everyone loves Cincinnati this week. That's everyone's pick. Yeah, they might win this game. The Steelers have bad momentum and bad juju. lately. Russell Wilson kind of regressing. He's turning the ball over. You're wondering if we might get Justin Fields at some point, almost like if you remember the Music City Miracle, if you're old enough to know the nuances of that game, if you remember correctly, that was one of these quarterback situations where they had Doug Flutie and Rob Johnson, and Doug Flutie took this team to the playoffs after these guys had kind of switched roles as the starter and the backup throughout the season. And what they went ahead and did is they went ahead and put Rob Johnson back in as the starting quarterback for Buffalo over Doug Flutie in what was a controversial kind of maneuver in the first playoff game. So you're wondering if Pittsburgh sputters here, if we don't get a Justin Fields sighting in the playoffs. You got to think they'll stick to Wilson no matter what. But at some point, are we done with Fields? I can't say that's absolutely the case. But Pittsburgh, who has been sputtering, is the underdog at home here. And I'm actually going to go against my system play. Like I said, I'm not going to count the system play on week 18 because I've seen it lose on week 18. Well, probably technically week 17 back then because we didn't have the extra week or the extra game. So for that reason alone, I'll say the system play doesn't count. It does not apply. And the one time that it's lost, actually, we did not count it earlier in the season because of the weird nuances, but it wasn't Pittsburgh. And that was that weekend where Russell Wilson did have the first, that was his first week at quarterback. That was the first week with Devontae Adams. The Jets just fired their coach. All right. And the Jets and Aaron Rodgers were a favorite at Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh hammered them at home. So maybe the same type of deal. I'm not convinced the Bengals are a good team. I think the Steelers can send them packing. The Steelers with a win, even if the Ravens win, can go ahead and play Houston, who I think that's who they would love to play in the very first round of the wild card. So I'm just going to give the home team a chance here. It's super cold. That has to play into offenses being super explosive at some point. You got to figure. So give me the Steelers here. I just have a gut, and I like the Bengals somewhat all week just to kind of ride the momentum, and knowing that it is kind of a system play type of dealio. But I've completely switched here on my thinking. I think this is a great spot for the Steelers to get right. They're at home. It's a night game. It's going to be cold. And they have their arch rival, one of their arch rivals coming in. It'll be a rabid fan base. And I think the Steelers can pull it off. Russell Wilson needs to protect the ball. And I think the Steelers can coast to victory. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and queue up our man, Dave Del Grande. We talked to him yesterday. So we were able to get the props on the games today. I think the Ravens game, we don't have 2 touchdown scores yet, at least on my one book. Yeah, we don't. So we're still missing some props, and then we'll get him on tomorrow for the rest of the slate as well. Our man Allah is tuning in from New Haven, Connecticut. Allah, appreciate you, man. Been a good, loyal listener to us for the last several weeks, so we appreciate that. Okay, if you have any picks, go ahead and send it to us. I got the text hotline ready to go. I have the number on the screen. It is 757-354-5517. So, again, text us your plays. Text us your questions. Some of you still are in fantasy for a final week. Maybe one last week of Survivor. Anything you have, let us know, and we'll try to answer it the best that we can. That is 757-354-5517. So we'll spend an hour with my man, Dave Del Grande. We'll come back, and me and nephew Dave will take a look at a little bit more in depth at everything on the board for these 2 football games this evening. All right, so Dave Del Grande, he is a columnist with Field Level Media. He has covered the Golden State Warriors for decades. He is an NFL gambling expert. He is a senior analyst at Stat Factor. He's the founder of MrFantasy.com himself and a contributor and writer for Deadspin. So, from Castro Valley, California, let's bring on our man, Dave Del Grande. All right, let's wrap it up with fantasy first. Happy to report, Dave, by the time Monday night came around, I had George Kittles. The opponent had Jahmyr Gibbs, but I also had about a 38-point lead going into that Monday night game. So it's been a few years, but I'm happy to announce that I won our 12-team fantasy league. How about that?
All right. Congratulations. Wow.
Yep, not too bad. Jaden McDaniels, my MVP for the year. You know what? Let's just start with him. Is he MVP worthy candidate as a rookie?
In fantasy?
Nah, in real football. I mean,
No,
he's top five-ish, at least, kind of, right?
Boy. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good candidates. You know, I'm surprised people are really pushing for Burrow to be MVP. I mean, you know, when you're 9-6 or whatever their record is, I mean, they had a very mediocre season, lost a lot of close games, which falls on the quarterback. And there's just been, I mean, there's one team in the league that lost one game, and there's two teams in the league that lost two games.
Right.
I mean, you know, how can Patrick Mahomes not be the MVP of the league? I mean, it's the dominant, you know, not almost always, but often best player on the best team. Kansas City at this point clearly has demonstrated that they're the best team going in. Mahomes, while Kansas City hasn't had a great season, the comparison between the Bengals and the Chiefs is that both of them played a lot of close games. Kansas City won them all. Cincinnati lost them all. And so, yeah, Burrow is finishing the season strong. But you know, I mean, if there's one player in the league, and how many times have we heard this, that, oh, man, you don't want Kansas City to have the ball in the final 2 minutes with a chance to win the game, because they're going to win the game. And that comes down to one guy. I don't think there's any other player in the league who you would come close to saying that about. Anyway, my point is, you know, Jared Goff has had an incredible season on a team that's lost two games. You know, Sam Darnold will rank way ahead of, in my opinion, of the Washington quarterback. I mean, crying out loud, when the season started, and from a fantasy perspective, we talked about how you got to downgrade Jefferson. They got Sam Darnold quarterbacking this year. And look at what that team has done incredibly, and what a great season he's had. My point is, there's a lot of good stories out there. I mean, if you're going to be Victor Wembanyama of the NFL, then your numbers need to be so much better than anybody else. Than I know if your team's going to be a 500 team, I don't know. I just don't see it among the, the quote unquote long shot candidates. There's just too many. Haven't even mentioned Josh Allen, when 2 weeks ago he seemed to be a lock to win the award. Now they've had a couple of mediocre games. Actually, last week was pretty good. So, I mean, there's a lot of strong candidates. I can't imagine somebody coming from out of the pack and even finishing in the top five.
Let's see. Let's look at the odds. Josh Allen, and I haven't looked at these at all. Josh Allen minus 300. There's
minus 300 for the NFL.
Yeah,
MVP?
yeah. Lamar is at. You got to. Oh my God, you're going to be shocked when you hear this.
Okay, well, hold on a second. Let's go back to my philosophy here on these, these awards or long term, whatever. If one guy's minus 300, okay, that means that every other guy on the list has to be at least 10-1. because there's so many candidates. Minus 300.
So actually, you're kind of on the right track. There's one player at plus 220, Lamar Jackson, and then they're telling you these guys aren't going to win.
Okay, hold on.
But I'll give you the order.
Now, let me interrupt you again.
Yeah.
If there were two guys involved,
Yep.
just two,
Yep.
one guy's minus 300,
Yep.
the other guy's plus 220.
Right.
Those aren't the best odds necessarily for the player, but they're fair.
Right.
They're fair. Okay.
Right.
Now, that just means there's nobody else. Everybody else is 1,000 to 1. Because everybody else is just
they
pure
climb.
profit.
Well, your boy Mahomes, 500 to 1 right now. I see some 400s, but mainly he's 500 to 1.
Well, that's what those odds are telling you.
Yeah.
One guy, if this were a horse race, right, and you've got one guy's 2 to 5 favorite, well then, and there's another horse in the race, who's 2 to 1. Well, that's just telling you that every other horse, if you went to the track, every other horse in the race, a minimum 50 to 1. And unfortunately, that's just not the way. It's a sucker's bet.
Right.
That but that's people like playing that game. I think it's a very bad idea. But anyway, the point is, I think that it really should. It really should be a close vote because there are so many good candidates. And so,
it should be closer than this. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are teams. I mean, if every team, if this were like last year, if I want to say last year, the top records last year, everybody had 3 or 4 losses. And if that's the case, and the top teams are back, closer to the pack, that brings more guys into it. But, one team is 15-1. 2 teams are 14-2. Whatever. So it's like, gee, we're really talking about, guys who need a win on the last week of the season to sneak into the playoffs. Again, I don't mean to bully on Joe Burrow, but it's like, okay, you got the best receiver in the league, and your team has been a disappointment all year, making a nice little run here at the end of the season. Great, you beat Denver, a very, very lucky game, and you're seriously being considered as a MVP candidate by some people. I heard one person say, anybody who doesn't vote for Burrow is a complete idiot. Well, no. Look in the mirror. You're the complete idiot. So anyway, it's good talking fodder. But Allen's been a great story. No doubt about it. I mean, Buffalo was not a team projected to do well. They got rid of their receivers. They've got no running game really. You would have thought going into the season, and now they're they're a serious title contender. So I mean, Allen's one, and they've got a really, really good record. So I think he's a good candidate. Jackson's a decent candidate.
Plus 220 for him. He's the second guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't vote for him. I just think that, again, their season hasn't been in any way, shape, or form a dominant season. Buffalo's had a better season than Baltimore, with far lesser talent. Kansas City's had a way better season than Baltimore. Now, with better talent, no doubt, but in kind of a different manner, an exciting manner. I don't think Jackson should win. I'd vote for Mahomes ahead of Jackson.
Other candidates on the list, just to throw them out there. And maybe I'll say something about whatever. I agree with you, Burrow, 20 to 1. You know what? If they gave it to Jackson, I'm not going to argue with that at the end of the day. It's closer than what I think these odds say a little bit. Maybe that's priced right, but the rest of the guys, like Barkley, 40 to 1, I could make a slight case for him. for sure. Even my guy, Jared Goff. I know when we picked quarterbacks for our must-win game about 6-7 weeks ago, you took Allen, I took Goff, and I just don't see the negative in his play hardly. Where Allen will give you a dud here or there. After that, it is Darnold, 150-1, 200-1 in that range, and then I'll be happy my man's Jaden is in the conversation, so he's overall your 7th pick, and then Baker, and then Mahomes. I can't believe Mahomes is the 9th pick right now out of that whole group. I just feel like it's closer, like you said. If these people know football like they should know football, who are voting on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are tired of Mahomes winning.
Right.
It's kind of like
right.
You know, it's like, oh boy, this year, all the MVP, different, Jason Tatum, has a chance to win MVP or Giannis or whatever.
Right.
It's like, what happened to Jokic? I didn't realize he's injured and out for the season, and you just get tired of talking about the same guys. You're looking for different stories. And unfortunately, that's the way these votes go a lot of times. And so
even worse with Jokic is the fact that he did win the 3 in a row, and then they felt like they had to give it to Embiid, who didn't even play in the playoffs after that.
Well, that's another issue, a completely separate issue. The fact that it's a regular season award, and why is it that way? I mean, if we're talking about the most valuable player of the NBA season, shouldn't we be talking about the NBA season and not just these kind of meaningless games that they play leading into the most important games? I mean, there's a what I find is funny is Jaylen Brown wins the Eastern Conference MVP and the NBA Finals MVP. And he wasn't even a first-team All-NBA player last year. This year, if you look at the All-Star voting for this year, he's not one of the top vote getters. I mean, it's like, but yet he was, when push came to shove, he was considered to be anyway, the best player in the NBA come playoff time. So things change. Guys have great regular seasons. Guys coast during the regular season, whatever it is. It just seems silly that you give an award for the regular season, and when like I said, the most important games, the cream rising to the top, doesn't happen until the very end.
All right, let's see if we can pick out a couple topics here. All right, it looks like the Jets are already starting to look at coaches. I wish I could be in the same room with you when you realize that Ron Rivera is one of the early candidates to come in. Head scratcher for sure, right? With your whole, especially if you need to make sure you got the GM you want going in place. You're really going to go look for a coach now, right? And then 2, another retread, set the franchise back another 5 years type of coach.
Well, to me, if I'm looking for a head coach in the NFL, I'm not looking for the best offensive coordinator. I'm not looking for the best defensive coordinator. I want a leader. I want Bill Belichick. I don't care how Greg Popovich. I don't care how old they are, right? What they need to do is in football, with the traditional, the Vince Lombardi types, in football, are the guys who lead coaches and lead players. They don't call the plays. We've seen so many times this in recent weeks. The coaches on the sidelines who are calling plays and it just no, that's not the most important thing that's going on. You've got an offensive coordinator, to call your plays. You're supposed to be determining, a general direction for the team. Thinking about, well, if we score, should we go for 2? Fourth down here, should we go for it? Should we not go for it? I mean, should be planning ahead. Should be a lot of other things should be going on in your mind, not, did they just bring in a fifth defensive back? Oh, boy, I should put a third wide receiver out there. No. You should be thinking about, if we don't make this, are we going for it on fourth down, rather than wasting a timeout to make that decision that's going to cost you in the long run. So I'd rather have, I'd like to bring in Pete Carroll, right, and say, all right, Pete, look, who can you bring with you? And when Pete Carroll says, well, yeah, I can bring, DeVore or whatever the name of the Alabama coach is. We had a really good relationship when he was here at Washington. He can be my offense. He's agreed to be my offensive coordinator, and my defensive coordinator is going to be, my old buddy Robert Saleh. And that becomes your package. And so now, instead of saying, oh my God, why are they considering Pete Carroll? He's 95 years old. Well, excuse me, they're not just considering Pete Carroll. They're considering who's going to be the offensive coordinator. Wow, it's going to be this guy, this offensive mastermind guy. Like that, decision. Who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Wow, we've got this great defensive coordinator, bad head coach, but, really good coordinator. We can bring in those three guys to coach our team. This is exactly what we want. A great leader, a great offensive mind, and a great defensive mind, all working together, rather than, well, let's go out and hire Detroit's offensive coordinator because he's a really good offensive coordinator. Well, he's not being hired as an offensive coordinator. He's being hired as the head coach. What leads you to believe he's going to be a good head coach? He might, but so many guys get put in that situation, and what do they fall back upon? Well, I'm going to continue to call the plays. No. We don't want you to call the plays. We want you to hire somebody who, like you, is a great offensive mind and can focus on calling the plays. Meanwhile, you be in charge of this whole operation. So this is where you see some of these names. I mean, you mentioned Rivera as a guy where Ron Rivera on his own, you know what, been there, done that. Don't really want him. But Ron Rivera, who says, all right, you know what, I've got Nick Saban has agreed to come on and be my defensive coordinator, and and Peyton Manning has agreed to come on be my offensive coordinator. It's like, whoa, when can we sign you? And that unfortunately, I think gets lost a lot of times in the hiring. It's not, you're not just, because it's the teams, the Jets need a new offensive coordinator, regardless of who they hire as the head coach. They need a new offensive coordinator. Well, okay, head coaches, tell me who you're bringing with you. And, it's almost like you're hiring a college basketball coach. And he comes in and he says, well, you know what? You hire me, I'll bring LeBron's son. I'll bring this other guy, this other All-American guy. They're part of my package. They come with me. Like, okay, wow, ooh, this is great. And I think that needs, and unfortunately, we the fans, the public, we're not privy to that kind of information because it's all quiet. Ron Rivera doesn't want people to know that Peyton Manning has agreed to be his offensive coordinator. Peyton Manning doesn't want anybody to know. So when he goes in an interview, he says, hey, look, this has to stay between us, but I can bring in Peyton Manning to be our offensive coordinator. And so we never find that out. Why are they considering Ron Rivera? Well, guess what? There could be things behind the scenes that you just don't realize.
I need to mark the tape here for when this does happen. This will make for a great promo down the road. Let's
Well, I
see.
would say this. I don't get a whole lot of things right.
I like to think it exactly. Though
I did write something about TNT's coverage of I forget what it was. It must have been the NBA Cup or
the
something.
college football.
No, it was an NBA thing where I remember where I was talking. Something had happened at the end of one of the games, and anyway, my big thing was TNT needs, as great as their post game and pregame basketball show is, they need a coach, as part of their crew, because when serious stuff happens at the end of a game, these guys don't really, Shaq offers nothing.
Right.
Charles Barkley offers, opinions on stuff that never happened. He's like, why? They should have called the timeout. Were you listening? The coach just explained why he didn't call the timeout, and it made perfect sense. Oh, he did. Oh, okay. Well, then, they should have called traveling. Whatever. It's like, no, they need a coach's mentality there, but yet it has to be somebody who is like them, who is outspoken, who's willing to say things, negative about one of his old colleagues. And I wrote, when Mike Brown gets fired next week, he'd be a perfect guy for that spot. Well, lo and behold, guess what? I think it might have been 2 weeks later, but Mike Brown got fired.
Right.
Who expected that to happen? Well, hey, I did. So anyway, I do get things right every once in a while.
All right. Let's stick it on the Jets while we're here. Rodgers, what would you put the percentage at that he actually retires? I hear a lot of people talking. He could be thinking that he's going to be out now. You know how it is. You always hear all this nonsense, one way or the other. But is it 50-50 in your mind? 75-25, he comes back. Can you put a percentage on it?
Well, how much money is he taking with him into retirement? Retirement means you give up your future, money.
Right.
And he's already restructured his contract with the Jets to pay him more in the future than he originally was making.
There you go.
I mean that if they buy him out or whatever you would say, hey, look, we'll pay you $80 million over the next 2 years, to not play for us, then his chances of retiring are greater. I'm going to say his chances of retiring far, far less than 50.
Yeah, I think he comes back. Yeah, I do too.
I think he's coming back too. And then the thing is, while this didn't necessarily work well, the last time it happened, he complained, why didn't we draft Jordan Love when we already have a quarterback and we need a long snapper, but the Jets need to do what the Falcons did and just say, hey, look, I know Rodgers coming back next year, but we're going to use our number, 8 pick in the draft on a quarterback that we really like. And then he can come in, and Rodgers has agreed to work with him. I mean, that's kind of has to be a part of what this is all about. Hey, Aaron, we'll let you quarterback again next year. We'll give you a new offensive coordinator. We'll have Adams back. We'll have Wilson back. We'll have Hall back. We'll have all your weapons back. But we need you to agree that a big part of your role here is going to be to mentor this other guy who's going to come in like Love in a couple of years or a year or whatever it is and be your replacement. And I think Rodgers would do that. And the money, like I said, the money's a big incentive for him to come back. Having Adams again is a big incentive for him to come back. New offensive coordinator could be a big incentive for him to come back. At even money, I call Rodgers returning a lock.
Well, you could even put it like this. I mean, you can't do much worse than what you did this year. So you're almost in a sense playing with house money to go out there and really do something good the next year. And you can only look good for it even if you finish 10-7, 11-6, maybe making a wild card. At least you have that going for you too, and not a 3-win season.
Well, the thing is that they have a lot of weapons there.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
it's not
they do.
like,
They
all
do.
right,
Yeah.
we understand Rodgers isn't the quarterback he used to be, right? And if this were the Titans or one of the Panthers, it's like,
Jacksonville,
all right, we need you to turn back the clock and show us some of that magic from 10 years ago and lead this undermanned team to a surprising season. No, you know what? He's not capable of that. But with as we've seen kind of a little bit these last couple of weeks, with Adams, with Wilson, with Hall, he doesn't have to do that much. And so I think he's fully capable next year of coming back and having an average NFL season. And if he has an average NFL season, then the Jets team, will have an above average NFL season because the weapons will carry them.
All right, let's get to it. We'll do the Saturday games, and then we'll break apart, and we'll do the Sunday on a separate audio reel, and we'll have those for both days this weekend. And here we go. We get the old. Actually, before we get to the games, you wanted me to ask you about college football playoff seeding. You had something to say about that.
Well, I'd like to say something that not everybody else in the world is saying.
Yeah, let me hear it.
Which they all are all saying it now. I mean, this was clear from the get-go, and it's played out. It hasn't exactly played out this way, but you look at the number 5 seed in the playoff. Okay, so you've got the top 4 seeds are going to be 4 conference champions. Well, there's only 2 good conferences, and so the SEC champ and the Big Ten champ, they're going to be seeded first and second every year, and deservedly so. But then the 3rd seed and the 4th seed, I don't care who they are not going to be good teams, and they don't deserve to be the 3rd and 4th seed, because what that sets up is the number 5 seed, which is either the 2nd or 3rd best team in the country. They get to play first off, they start off the playoffs by playing the 12 seed, who very likely is the 5th conference champion, who really doesn't deserve to be there. So, and so and not only that, but they play that game at home. All right. So, I mean, so they get in essence a first round bye without really getting a first round bye. Then they win that first game, and who do they draw in the next round? They draw the 4th ranked, conference winner, which might be the 2nd worst team in the tournament. And that number 4 team, they don't even get the home field advantage. They play that game on the road. So we just saw this in the playoffs. And so what happens is, granted, Arizona State played a very good game in their game. Boise State, played a decent game. But the fact is, the 5 seed was favored double digits over the 4 seed. The 6 seed was favored double digits over the 3 seed. I mean, what does that tell you about your seeding? And it's, we want to give the conference champions, a reward. Well, that's fine. Give them the reward that they're in the tournament, because they probably don't even deserve to be there in the first place. They're not that good. And so you get the 5 seed. So the 5 seed, they draw number 12, which is a terrible team, and they win. Then they draw number 4, right, which is not a good team, and they win. So they, in essence, have a bye straight to the semifinals. And meanwhile, then their next game is against the top seed. Well, that's going to be a tough game. But you know what? The top seed, they've played a much tougher opponent in the quarterfinal round. The Oregon-Ohio State game. Like Oregon, the top seed, has to beat Ohio State just to get to the game against the number 5 seed, who has had 2 byes in essence. I mean, it's just, whoa, who put this thing together? It's just totally unfair. And you can see, like I said, you can project it every year going in, because you know the number 8 seed is always going to be a second or third place team from the SEC, and that team will always be better than the Big 12 champ, than the ACC champ, then the group of the lightweight champ, and it's like, and like I said, you can see that weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Now that they've played these games, now the whole world is saying, whoa, the seeding thing. These games are great, they're fun, or whatever. We need to do something about the seeding. So, like I said, I like to lead the bandwagon and not jump on the bandwagon, but we're all kind of seeing the same thing here at the playoffs. I wouldn't say it's ruining, a good thing, but it certainly ain't helping.
Right. I like the games solely for the fact that we just have them on during the Christmas break. I mean, especially now that we had this year with Christmas right in the middle of the week, New Year's right in the middle of the week. It almost feels like you're on your 5th weekend in a row starting right now, in that sense. And it's been a ton of football, so there's been a ton of time to occupy as well. I'll say this too. I kind of liked how they had the game on the 2nd, even though that was because of that tragedy down in New Orleans. They postponed it. But 3 games in a row is a little too much. It was nice to spread it out to that third day. So hopefully they'll kind of keep that into account in the future. But, I get it. The first isn't always going to be on a Wednesday or a Tuesday.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Moving forward is
right.
now
NFL stuff
next year or 2 years from now, when Christmas or New Year's is on Saturday,
right.
and now it's on the same day as your NFL, either week 17 or week 18. And so it's like, well, if we play, we got to play on New Year's, and then let's have a game the day after when the rest of the NFL is playing. It worked out great this year. I agree with you that the way the schedule set up is that, great. This gives us these really good games on days where, I got nothing else to do. I'm not, there are no NFL games going on. This is great. Well, unfortunately, only 2 or 3 times out of every 7 years are we going to get that midweek, Christmas and midweek New Year's Day that sets up so nicely like this.
Yeah, they'll have to adjust. They'll have to figure it out. They'll have to wait for the NFL to kind of do their thing and then plan around it accordingly, probably. But don't expect great games. 12 teams is enough. If they stretch it to 16 games, we're just going to see the same thing. Bloodbath first round after bloodbath first round. I'll tell you what, it'll become one of the easiest bets in sports, maybe. Kind of kicking myself I didn't take all those favorites heavily on some sort of an alt line. I will say this, too. I do have a ticket on Notre Dame. I did buy into that defense. So we'll see if they can carry it home here. They look good on defense. They really did. Okay, let's get to our Saturday. Do you have a favorite to win it right now? Do you think it's Ohio State? Or do you think it's open?
Unfortunately, I think I don't like the matchups in the next round. I mean, I think to me, Penn State and Notre Dame are very similar. I would agree with that. Good second or third place Big Ten or SEC teams. I don't think they're real powerhouse teams. I think Ohio State is significantly better than them, and I think that Texas would beat either one of those teams as well. And unfortunately, that's not the way the draw is playing out. So you got Notre Dame and Penn State. I have zero interest in Notre Dame and Penn State. I'd like to root against them both. And unfortunately, they're playing each other. Unfortunately, one of them is going to make the finals. And I just think that Ohio State and Texas, Texas has they're like, I think they're as much like Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia as you can get in the terms of just the sheer mass of talent that they have. Texas has 35 guys who run a 4.3 40. Just kind of so it's anything can happen when Texas is playing. They have so much talent on the field. I just think that maybe Ohio State is a little too powerful for them, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won this game. Like I said, the other game, as far as I'm concerned, it could end in a tie.
All right, so this is let me go over the lines because I think this is easy, to be honest. Ohio State's 5.5, 53.5. So that's an overplay right there. You take the over 53.5 in that. And then the under was going to be the lock without knowing the line with Notre Dame and Penn State. 46.5. That's fine with me, under in that game. So there you go.
That both of those make sense.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that. I just think that there's a ton of playmakers on the field in the Texas-Ohio State game. Any play, a kickoff, an interception return, a long pass, a screen pass. I mean, any play in the game could go 75 yards. And so that could really get into a pinball game. Whereas the other game, to me, is very similar to Notre Dame and Georgia. It's a two very strong defensive teams. You don't want to be the team that makes the mistake. Both teams have playmakers, and both teams have a ton of defense as well. And I'd be surprised if that game weren't played conservatively. Kind of like the Texas-Georgia game was. Georgia didn't play as conservatively as some people thought they should have. So I can see that definitely being a lower scoring game.
All right, finally to our games on Saturday. The first one up, Cleveland and Baltimore. That is the 4:30 p.m. Eastern start, 1:30 Pacific time. And we're going to get Bailey Zappi now in as the quarterback for the Browns. We know what's at stake for the Ravens. Win, and they clinch the division, right? They haven't clinched the division yet, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. So one win, and that gets them home. Pittsburgh will play later that night. A huge favorite here for Baltimore. I mean, this is the highest we've seen in forever. It's minus 19.5. 41.5 is the total. I think Zappi gives, I was thinking it's going to be DTR, or maybe you can get a sneak attack, Jameis Winston sighting here for the last game. So I was going to hold out and try to grab a big number with the Browns. I'm not laying that number. I just can't. There's no way I can. Zappi's good enough. I think if Cleveland comes out and at least tries a little bit, they can stay within the number. Maybe the Ravens get a little tight in their britches too. Knowing that they just need to win. We don't need to go out and win this game by 35. Let's just try to win the game. So we can just control the ball maybe with Henry and the other guys and just kind of do what we did against Houston and kind of skate by and take the second half off here. You can see how Cleveland would be a lack of motivating, or when I say that, I look at these teams with the bad record, and we'll get to it more, especially with like the Patriots. I mean, what kind of play calling are they going to be calling? And it could be handoff after handoff after handoff for Cleveland just to get out of there and keep that 3-win total. This last week is always tricky compared to the first week of the NFL, which is another tricky week. Let me start with that with you, Dave. Then we'll get to the game. Is this whole last week trickier than the first week, easier than the first week, about the same, or is this as easy as it gets as far as I think last year you loved Week 18, right?
Well, yes, and the reason for that is it's very rare in any kind of casino action where the house doesn't have control of what's going on.
Right. Good point.
Anything, and even in week 1 of the season, while you don't really know, what's going to happen and who's going to play how much, you have a far better feeling than you do this week. Anything can happen this week. And whenever some team, to me, it's more comparable to the preseason because, you got teams that just have no incentive to play well. And that's scary because, like you said, if Cleveland shows up and for whatever reason decides, you know what, we're going to try to play our best game of the season. We're going to play all of our starters the whole way. And even when we're behind 17-0 at halftime and Baltimore empties their bench in the second half, we're going to keep playing all of our starters and try to outscore them in the second half. You just don't know if that's what's going to happen or if Cleveland's going to decide, you know what, we're down 17-0 at halftime. Baltimore's emptying their bench. We're going to empty our bench, and let's just agree to have a running clock. And that's kind of, and that's that uncertainty, it leads to the possibility that inside information will kill the books this week. It's like, okay, is Cleveland really going to show up? Are they really going to try? Or is Baltimore going to win this game 41-0, by using, by doing what they do in the preseason, which, they're a very good preseason team and playing a lot of guys, and Cleveland doesn't even want to be there. I'm sure that the establishment would love to say no line on this game. It's unpredictable, and we don't do unpredictable. Well, unfortunately, this is the NFL, and there's no rules about it. But if you don't put a line on this game, then all these people lining up to make a bet, they're going to go next door and make their bets there. So, cross your fingers, put your line out there, and you're guessing now, just like everybody else is. Except that, you know what? I heard, whatever the beat writer from the Baltimore newspaper, he just interviewed Keaton Mitchell, and Keaton Mitchell's told him that, the coach says I'm going to play the whole second half, and so now what does the beat writer do with that? Well, his first phone call is to his buddy, who he knows plays these games.
Right.
He says, hey, look, I got to publish this in a half hour, but get your line on Mitchell. He's playing the whole second half against Cleveland, and they're not going to care. He's going to rush for 75 yards, and that's the kind of bet that sinks the house. So that's why I like this week, because there's going to be information out there, or at the very least, it's going to be intelligent, projecting this week. That's different from any other week in the season. And if you can, for fantasy purposes or whatever purposes you have, if you can guess which is going to be that guy who gets featured in the second half of a game, that's basically a preseason game, there's a lot of money to be made.
All right. So any angle at all on this Ravens-Browns game?
Well, again,
There's not many
don't see
props
why-
open right now. That's for
I
sure.
don't
Not even on
see
this one.
I don't see why Cleveland's showing up for this game.
Right,
I mean,
right.
there's no reason. Last
Right.
week they were at home. Very similar situation. They were at home. They had a chance to be spoiler last home game, and they completely laid an egg against a very mediocre Miami team who didn't have its quarterback. And so that was it. They fired their bullets last week, and they were all blanks. And so what have they done this week? Well, they've already come out and said, well, you know what, we're gonna put our third string quarterback in there, take a look at him. Well, what do you think they're doing at the other position? Baltimore's going to kill them this week. And like I said, when a line pops, because now so what's Baltimore going to do? Well, they're going to get their starters out of there as quickly as possible. And will they go to, their second string running back? When they pull, their starter out of the game.
Yes.
And it's like, well, no, they don't want to put guys at risk who they'll actually planning on using next week. They'll go straight to that third string running back,
Keaton Mitchell.
Keaton Mitchell. And they're going to run the ball against a team that, has no interest in being there. And like I said, we see this in the preseason. The team that tries has a little more energy, tries a little harder, they can really run up a big number here. So it's the key to this week to being successful in whatever your endeavor is. Figure out who the Keaton Mitchells are in 4 or 5 of these matchups, and if you can do that, you can have yourself a great weekend. Even Mitchell last week, they just had a blowout game against Tennessee. He's a guy who's got tremendous talent, had a knee injury last year, comes back this year as a third stringer, doesn't play much at all, but they think he's got ability. They'd like to possibly use him in the playoffs in some capacity. Got 11 carries last week, in a game that was far more significant than what this game is going to turn into. He gets 11 carries last week. Imagine when he's getting this week in the second half against a team that, for all I know, is going to be playing 9 guys. And so when a line pops on him, take it every way, shape, and form.
I got plus 250 on the touchdown, and that's all we got right now.
Well, you definitely, put down his name. You'll, as we've seen a lot of times during the season, when we're, a day or two or whatever ahead of the game, they don't know who's going to be playing, is he injured or not. They don't offer all these lines, but come game day, and even live action, all of a sudden you start seeing a whole lot of numbers in these games. He's someone who keep your eye on. You're going to want. He's even a sneaky fantasy guy this week to put in there, and just knowing that, Barkley's brought me to this point, but Barkley ain't playing this week, and I got to find a backup. I really don't have any good backups. This Mitchell guy, he could be a fantasy difference maker.
On the same premise, I can get on a greedy ticket, Patrick Ricard, 24-1. If they feel like they can kind of give him a touchdown. I felt that way about Juszczyk in the 49er game. Like, man, it's been forever since Juszczyk scored. This game means nothing for the Niners. Won't they give him an opportunity to get down by the goal line? And that's what they did. So I could see Ricard in that same kind of thought in a way.
Yes, absolutely. Again, there aren't a lot of games that fit this mold this weekend. There are some that could fall into it, but this game is just so obvious, and the line indicates it, that one team's showing up and the other team's not. That this game has 41-3 written all over,
right?
41-3. They're scoring 5 touchdowns, and Henry he might be in there for the first two. Jackson might get you one or whatever. But come the second half of the game, there's going to be 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 to be had among the Mitchells, the Ricards, these kinds of guys. I don't see them throwing the ball a whole lot when they're up 27-0, start the fourth quarter. So I would look more at a running back, but I just, I like that kind of an opportunity.
All right. The team points for the Ravens, 30.5. The Browns, 10.5. Just since you mentioned both of those. Yeah, I mean, either way you dice it, I think the Ravens score 30.5.
I do too. Yeah.
Either way you dice it. Even if the Browns are not doing anything, the Ravens are going to score that just in the first half before they get their starters out. Okay, the next game, this is technically the system play because we have a team with the worst record who's the favorite over the team at home with the better record. And it kind of makes it more interesting because this has playoff implications for the Bengals mainly. Steelers already in, but they can move seeds around to win their division. But the Bengals are going to try to backdoor their way in here. But we'll get to that game on the Sunday slate with the Jets. I think the Dolphins have a great chance to maybe backdoor themselves in, but I'll ask you about them coming up. 48.5, the total on this game. This screams to take the Bengals, and I get it. I know it's a system play, but like you kind of said, Cincinnati kind of scurried at home last week to kind of etch it out against the Broncos. You thought that they would do better. They kind of are what they are at this point. We know we've heard that overused phrase before. If the Bengals were better, they would be better. The Steelers kind of need this to get the ship right before the playoffs. And Russell Wilson, if he doesn't make this happen on behalf of the Steelers, then I'm wondering if we might get some Justin Fields, although the Steeler fans I've talked to don't think that's the case. But I could see almost a Doug Flutie, Rob Johnson scenario, if you remember that for Buffalo when they famously lost the Music City Bowl, going to Rob Johnson over Flutie. So I'm wondering if we might get that kind of case if the Steelers lose. But where I've kind of liked Cincinnati all week, thinking that they got at least momentum, I think the Steelers can get the ship right at home here and beat the Bengals and knock them out for good and help themselves. So I'm going to lean with, and it's going to be cold. It's going to be really, really cold. 22 degrees. And I get it. Burrow can play in cold weather a little bit. I got to think that probably the better coach in Tomlin is going to have a good enough game plan for the Steelers to win this game. 48.5 is probably too high. If I see the Steelers controlling the clock on the ground a little bit, keeping Burrow off the field, limiting his opportunities, and let's just win this kind of football game the old playoff Steeler type of way, which will make it an under type of game. So I'm not going to expect a shootout here. It's probably too cold for that anyway. Where the Bengals have momentum, I think the Steelers are still good enough to stop that dead in its tracks and send them packing. So give me the Steelers as much as I've liked the Bengals kind of since the games ended last week. I'm going to flip my card here and go contrarian on what I've been hearing. I think that's a lot of people jumping on, like you said, the Burrow bandwagon, where they just didn't look too hot even in that win last week. Kind of lucky to get away with that thing at the end of the day. So I'll take the Steelers. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with with a lot of what you said there. I'm not sure Cincinnati has momentum going into this game.
Right.
That game last week was very disappointing. I mean, they had that game won a couple of different times, and then they allowed Denver to drive down the field against them and get that late score, and they were completely disorganized. When they had the ball with a chance to win, was it really a distrust in the kicker? When any other team in the league, any team, even in college football, would have taken the snap and taken a knee and run the clock down and kicked a 25-yard field goal to win the game. Instead, they didn't know what they were doing. They had all these timeouts, and then finally there goes Brown around the end, and he's going to go in for a touchdown. And I thought, okay, well, I guess they're not falling on the ball. And then he decides at the 1 yard line to slide. It's like, well, okay, that's smart. Now they can kneel on the ball and kick their field goal. And yet they come right back out on the next play and they run it in and they give the ball back to Denver. It's like, wait a minute. One play ago, you were doing the smart thing, and the next play, you're doing the dumbest possible thing. It's like, who's making these calls? And like, did Brown really decide on his own to slide at the goal line there? And then he gets injured while he's doing it. And I thought, you know what? They lose this game. They're going to fire Taylor immediately. Immediately. This cannot happen in an NFL game. And they've already blown all these games this year. Now they're, a vastly inferior Denver team. They're giving them a chance. It just made no sense to me the way they played the end of that game last week. They got very, very, very lucky. And now you go in this week and, well, Cincinnati has to win, so they'll probably win. No. Cincinnati's been in a lot of close games this year, and they've lost more of them than they've won. If this game is close, which it should be, you mentioned all the reasons why, I would expect them to lose this game. It's not, bad teams or mediocre teams are mediocre because, they get an opportunity to win, and more often than not, or at least as often as not, they find a way to lose those games. And to me, I sense that this is one of those games. If Pittsburgh, who has far less to play for, is going to give them everything they got. They'd love to, use this as a stepping stone to, to a possible upset in the playoffs next week. I don't know. I think it's going to be a very close game. And if it is, it comes down to it, well, I know one thing. Pittsburgh's got confidence in their kicker, and Cincinnati certainly does not.
That's huge. That's huge in that stadium too, especially.
Right. And, I just think that, again, I will say that if Pittsburgh wins this game, there's going to be a coach on the coaching, free agent market. By the end of the week,
it matters.
So,
yeah.
My feeling about who are my touchdown scorers, fantasy selections, whatever. I just don't see there being a whole lot of scoring in this game, and so there will be better games ahead. I'm passing on this game all the way around.
Let's see here. I'm not going to have some action, so I'm going to have some fun. I'll go back to the well on Russell Wilson rushing yards again, because he's been doing it nonstop here since we brought it up, or since you brought it up. He's at 14.5. He's plus 250 for 25. So I'll take a stab at that somewhere. Najee Harris, to me, is very low-hanging fruit in this type of game at 45.5 rushing yards. So I'll take a shot on that probably on an alternate over. All right, I'll just throw that out at you.
I mean, the thing about Pittsburgh offensively is, if they would just choose one running back, then I can see Pittsburgh in this game rushing for 120, 140 yards. In which case you would normally say, well, man, their top back, they don't even project them to have over 50. Well, unfortunately, in this case, that's because they got two top backs, and they don't really know which one is which. And like you said, Wilson's rushing for a little bit more. And it's nothing worse than having a ticket on a guy that has the potential to put up the numbers that you expected, and you see him standing over there on the sidelines because Warren is in there. So, that's what scares me about this.
I'm laughing because I didn't text you at the time, but on the Monday night game, man, oh man, I had some El Cheapo tickets parlayed to our Mancio and Vaki. If you ever got in and got the ball in the end zone, I had him parlayed with Huchek. I had a parlayed with Pearsall. I was looking at $5,500 off of some small bets if Vaki just would get into the game. It turns out he played one snap on offense when I dug it up in nearly every special teams.
Well, unfortunately, that Jefferson, Jameer Jefferson, whatever his name
Jefferson,
is.
Yes.
I mean, has come in and has taken snaps that I thought Hockey would be getting. And Jefferson, to his credit, has done quite well. So I think, sorry, Hockey, maybe next year.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Dave Del Grande for today. We'll bring him back in tomorrow for the full Sunday slate. Good morning, Nephew Dave. What's up, man?
Good morning, sir.
Nephew Dave joining us from his Oceanview studios in the lovely Norfolk, Virginia. I am Stephen Murray from our Chicks Beach studios in the lovely Virginia Beach, Virginia, the United States of America. This is the Saturday morning edition of the Round Robin NFL Week 18. Last week of the final of the regular season, first weekend of 2025. Nephew Dave, what about the NFL season wrapping up, regular season? You sad to see it go?
Yeah, how about it, man? Definitely sad to see it go. You know, football is always an exciting time of the year, especially for us. You know, we get in the studio, hang out with the guys and all that. You know, that slows down after football season. So definitely a little sad about that. But as you said last week, it had to happen sooner or later. It's been a pretty good season, you know, for my team, for the betting. We've done pretty well this year. So it's been a good year, Steve, and it's unfortunate it has to come to an end soon.
I have some tickets flipping up on the screen now, so you guys can get a view of your phone, or if you have us on the TV, you can follow along with some of the plays that we have. I do have a division ticket, Dave. It's looking pretty good. Let's see. I'm home with the Rams. I need the Ravens, the Buccaneers, and the Vikings. If all that hits, that's going to pay out $2,148. So Minnesota looks like that's going to be the key game there. Your Skins didn't win their division, but they came in second place, and you are in the playoffs. It's been a while since the Commanders have been in the playoffs. So what kind of optimism do you guys have? I mean, are you feeling feelings you haven't felt in a long time? What's the state of the union of the fans there?
Oh, yeah, man. Super optimistic. You know, it's been a while. I think we see what the post Dan Snyder era can be. We can get back to the team maybe that we once were. Now there's still some work to do, Steve. You know, it's a team that is still in progress, you know, very much so. So just to make it, I think is a plus. You know, obviously it's the icing on the cake if they can get in there and win one. But just to make it in a year like this where, you know, not many people thought we were going to do anything at all. I wasn't sure what to expect either. You know, it looks like we have found the quarterback of the future. And if you can get Terry McLaurin just a couple more weapons, man, this team would be very dangerous. You know, the defense is decent enough. That needs to probably be worked on a little bit too. But a couple weapons around Terry, and it's not like the guys who are there now, you know, have been slacking off. But it would be nice to get maybe a T. Higgins type of receiver to go along with McLaurin.
Right, yeah. Wow.
Man,
nice, right?
you make that offense so dynamic with JD back there. So, Steve, it's been a great year for us. You know, happy to be in. Again, icing on the cake. if we can get in there and win one, that would be fantastic. But overall, feeling pretty good about it in this season.
Overall thoughts on week 18, because it is tricky. There are going to be a lot of tempting plays out there, and I'm seeing some of the ones the viewers are sending in. But you got to be careful. I mean, some of these teams, even like the Ravens, they get out to a decent lead here. They could pull the plug on everybody. And next thing you know, you got a second half of backup players, and you have, you're trying to get over yard props on some of the starters. How do you see week 18 overall? Is it similar to week 1, similar to preseason? Do you see more opportunity? Are you being more cautious? Where I'm always cautious and kind of second guessing myself. I'll say this: after the last 24 to 36 hours of investigating some stuff, I have a lot of plays. So to me, I'm going to look at this as a weekend of opportunity. How do you see it?
Yeah, Steve, I agree with you. I think it's a week of opportunity. You should definitely be cautious of, what you just mentioned, with maybe a team like Baltimore getting, we absolutely expect that to happen. So I like the Keaton Mitchell angle. That's a guy that doesn't get a lot of time. He should see the field today. So I see that up on the board. And I think that's a pretty good pick. But yeah, Steve, I mean, there are opportunities out there, a lot of incentive opportunities is a way I think you could attack this week. And some of these games, there's not a whole bunch of meaningful ones, but some of them do still mean something, like the Sunday night game. The Bucs game, is important to them. They're still playing for that division. Same with Atlanta. So those are meaningful games right there. The Skins, that while they've already made it, it would be a lot better to get the 6th seed. So that game still has a little bit of meaning into that one. So figure they're going to come out and play tough. I haven't heard anything about the starters being rested for them. But yeah, Steve, I think there are some pretty good opportunities out here this week.
Now, our man Allah up in New Haven, Connecticut, part of his action, he likes Derrick Henry as the first touchdown scorer today. I kind of like that myself, to be honest. So I think that's a good call. Here's the deal. Derrick Henry needs one more touchdown for a big bonus, and it's his birthday. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
So
yep, I like that.
Touchdown overall. And do you have odds on first touchdowns? I got my book up. Still missing some props, and the first touchdown scorer, I think, is one of them. Still not listed quite yet for this.
I do believe I have it. Yeah, so he is plus 250
for the first touchdown, right?
Yep.
Wow, man, that's low juice.
That is super low.
Because it could be likely running it in from the 30-yard line on the screen pass or something like that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Or Mark Andrews running down the field from 50 yards. Zay Flowers.
7-1 for him if you like him to score first.
Who's that? Andrews?
Yep.
What do you have for likely?
Let's see here. 10-1.
Go ahead and give me the other Ravens since we're talking about it. And we're going to get into this game pretty much in a second anyway. What are the other first touchdown scorers? I'm not concerned about the Browns. I don't think they score first.
Yeah, they all the Browns players are at the bottom of this list. So Zay Flowers is plus 650. Lamar Jackson plus 750. Rashad Bateman plus 950. Keaton Mitchell 10-1, same as likely. Rasheen Ali is 13-1. Nelson Aguilar 18-1. Tylan Wallace 20-1. The defense, if you think that's possible, which I mean that could kind of be a sneaky play. The Browns get the ball first and
Marlon Humphrey
6.
Yep.
Exactly. That's going to be 20-1 as well. So there's some decent numbers there.
You like a little bit more on the Ravens defense, but I get where they're coming from. on that. You have to kill the big number in case it hits. Okay, so we'll get to it. We'll do the Survivor tomorrow. Obviously, I think if we were to play Survivor today for the weekend, and if you had the Ravens left, that's the obvious pick on the board to everybody. We don't need to make big news about that. But most everyone used the Ravens. No one's going to use the second game. So we'll get more into the Survivor talk tomorrow. Let's get right into it. Keep your lines handy, Dave, because where some books don't have some numbers, other books do. Some books don't have anything yet on the Sunday games, but we're, for the most part, there on this 2-game slate on this Saturday, Week 18. First game on the board is the Browns and the Ravens. 19.5. Is that the spread you're seeing now?
I have it at 20.5.
You have it at 20.5?
Yep.
Wow. So this line's all over the place this morning because I had it at 18.5 even yesterday. It was opened up at 16.5 early in the week. 41.5 the total right now. All right, so definitely be aware of that. I would say 19.5 and 20.5 is a big, big number. In fact, you can play them both, to be honest, and play the plus 20.5 and get a nice middle if it hits right on 20 points. Or you could, let's see, play that exactly the Ravens to win within that time, that band as well, at a nice plus number of odds. Let's go through what we have on the passing props. And I just have Lamar Jackson for 203.5. Do you have anything for Zappy?
Let's see here. Nope, I do not.
All right, and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, I have. You do not on Lamar Jackson? Or you do?
That's all I have. I don't have any Zappy
Okay, you
numbers.
only have them. Okay, yeah. So these books are thinking the same. Let's keep Zappy off the board for now. Lamar Jackson for 3 touchdowns is at plus 260. Over 1.5 touchdowns passing is at minus 146. That's one you got to be wary of because it's going to look very tempting to take Lamar for over 1.5 touchdowns today. But next thing you know, he feeds it to Henry a couple of times. They get the defensive touchdown you're talking about, Dave. They get a couple field goals, and they're up 27-3. And then here comes the backup quarterback. And for the Ravens, who's a Tyrod Taylor as well, I believe, right? So he's quite capable.
Yeah, yep.
He's quite capable to come in earlier than you would think and get Lamar out of there. So, again, like something like over 1.5, you're going to have to be very, very cautious on. The passing yards, again, with the 203.5, you got to be very cautious on that. I mean, it could be a lot of Derrick Henry in the first half. Again, get up to the big lead, and then you're sitting there, a dead duck in the water. In fact, some of these props, you probably want to try to take an under on some of these games, like an under Lamar Jackson parlay to an under Jordan Love for the Packers. Parlayed even maybe to although I think your Cowboys-Commanders game could be a little more competitive, but maybe an under Michael Penix Jr. passing prop. I mean, all that kind of thing makes sense when you're going to try to get a lead, try to run the ball, and you're not looking to pass at all, and the other defense is just looking to get the hell out of there and be done with it. So better angles for me is look at unders for something like Lamar Jackson passing today and try to tie it into something tomorrow. Receiving prop-wise today, Zay Flowers, 61.5. Mark Andrews, 33.5. Bateman's 29.5. I do see Judy at 58.5. I do see Elijah Moore at 26.5. Rushing prop-wise today, I got Derrick Henry at 90.5 and Lamar Jackson at 43.5. Again, is Henry going to be in there that long to run for 91 yards? He could get that, obviously, on 1 or 2 carries, 3 carries. But if he's at 65 yards, a couple scores on the day, and the Ravens have a big lead, you're not going to see Derrick Henry in the game. You're going to see Keaton Mitchell in the game. The backup third stringer for the Ravens, the touchdown scores for today. That's why I got, like you said, Dave, Keaton Mitchell on the ticket. He could get significant playing time in the second half. And, if they're going to score late, it's going to be in the second half, third quarter. It's a 50-50 shot as Mitchell via a handoff and just pound the ball in the end zone. Derrick Henry's minus 210, Flowers plus 125. I do think Derrick Henry gets his touchdown at minus 210. Flowers plus 125, Andrews plus 150, Lamar Jackson plus 190, Likely plus 200, Bateman plus 210, Dante Foreman plus 260, Keaton Mitchell plus 260, Rasheen Ali plus 260, the Baltimore defense plus 450, Judy plus 480, Walker 5-1, Tylan Wallace 5-1, Aguilar 7-1. Let's see, Bailey Zappi 12-1. Patrick Ricard now 22-1. So that line has moved on me. He was up 26-1. Of course, as I talked about betting on him earlier in the show, Dave, here comes everyone to bet on Patrick Ricard now, as he is someone who could obviously get a charity touchdown by Coach Harbaugh for all his hard work at fullback throughout the season. The team points here, the baseline, the Ravens are at 30.5 and the Browns are at 9.5. This is going to be simple for me, Dave. I don't care if they run it, pass it, get it on defense. I think the Ravens get over 30.5. I think they'll probably cover this big number, but it's out of control. And I'm not going to get on there. Just in case Zappy comes out and starts lighting it up, I'll just take the Ravens over 30.5 team points. I'll probably stretch that to an alternate as well to play it safe. That's better than playing the big point spread to me. I will take Derrick Henry on a touchdown, and I will take the Keaton Mitchell on a touchdown as well. And I got to figure Likely and Andrews, once their receiving yards get up, I got to like those maybe potentially as well. Probably Likely even more because he'll probably get to play the second half as well. And I could see Tyrod throwing it to him a few times. So I'll buy in on Likely. I'll buy in on Keaton Mitchell. I'll buy on Henry for 2. I'll probably even take Likely for 2 touchdowns as well when it pops off. And I'll take a look at Keaton Mitchell for 2 as well. So what are your thoughts on this game, Dave, Cleveland and Baltimore?
Yeah, Steve, that all makes sense. Man, that's just such a big number. You would think that they should be able to cover that, but I don't know. When it's that big, I'd rather not play it myself. I went pretty simple here. I'm going to take Derrick Henry as well. I did pair that with Jerry Jeudy. That's 5-1 in the same game parlay. And then the other thing I did to keep this simple is we're going to go with the Baltimore Ravens minus 12.5 in the first half. Figure, they're going to kind of come out, put it on them, and then the guys get some rest. In the second half, they put the backups in. And it's also a pretty limited slate as of right now looking through this book here. I don't have too much, I have all the touchdown scores and all those things we like to do, but the passing yardage is just Jackson, receiving is just the main cast of characters, which, who knows how long they're going to play if Baltimore really puts it on them. So I don't really like any of the props here in this one at the moment. We'll take another look at that to see if they offer some other guys to get something where we can get some good numbers there. But again, Steve, I'm just going to kind of keep this one simple like you. Minus 12.5 Baltimore Ravens first half, Henry and Jeudy to score.
All right. So you will give Jeudy the benefactor of the doubt of the Ravens. You're doing what I said they could do, but just throwing, a score or two. And if that's the case, then might as well be Jeudy, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Let's get to game number 2. This one's a little different, Dave, and I don't know if you noticed or not. but this is the official system play where we have a team who is on the road, who has the worst record on the road at the team with the better record, yet the team with the worst record on the road is the favorite. That is the Bengals minus 2.5, 48.5. My first thoughts are, yes, Bengals, a little bit of momentum. They won what was a fun game last week, and they can beat their rivals, the Steelers, and try to backdoor themselves into the playoffs here. And the fact that they are the system play kind of leads you to that. Well, the system play in one of its rare losses happened on a last week of the season with Brett Favre when he played for the Vikings at the Bears. And in fact, it was ugly. A lot of people expected Minnesota to beat the Bears that day. The Steelers are motivated here. They can, even with the Ravens win, still improve their seeding. And if with a win, they play Houston next week, which is an awfully appealing compared to the rest of the competition in the American Football Conference. I've heard a lot of Bengal talk all week here. Russell Wilson, we've kind of been on a fade of him. He's been turning the ball over. I've been fading the Steelers to success. I faded them on Christmas Day to an easy winner with Kansas City. So I've been doing good about throwing the Steelers to steal some lingo from our show, What the Puck is Going On, throwing the Steelers in the penalty box and betting against them. But I'm gonna go quite contrarian on all the thoughts I've had myself on this, and I'm gonna throw the system play out because it's proven it loses on the last week. So I can't go by it. I'm not gonna stick by it, and I actually see this. I see the Steelers just from top to bottom as a better team, and I'm not sure what this Chase Brown injury is like either. To be honest, I'm glad fantasy football ended for me last week. That slide where he kind of got dinged up, reminded me of like the ugly slide in the second where someone doesn't know how to slide in baseball and they hurt themselves. That's exactly what he did. So I'm not sure the extent of his healthiness going into this game tonight. I think the Steelers probably have the better coach here. I know the Cincinnati is going to be the pick for a lot of people. I'm going to go the opposite here. I'm going to take the Steelers at home to get off the mat, to get some momentum going into the playoff. They're due for a win. Now, if Russell Wilson craps the bed, I don't doubt we see Justin Fields again, either this game or in a future playoff game. I'm not going to write that off quite yet myself. But give me the Steelers in this game. That's my first thoughts. 48.5, and I'm going to tend to think this is an under game. It still is, at the end of the day, 22 degrees up there, and that's not exactly conducive weather for a 45 to 38 type of football game that these two are capable of playing in much better conditions. So tell me your first thoughts on this one.
Yeah, Steve, you're absolutely right. This game, a little bit different. It has meaning for both sides, now obviously a whole lot more for Cincinnati. They have to have it. And that's kind of why I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game. I do think the Steelers are the better team, so I do agree with you there. And they are attractive as a money line play, something I'm definitely going to look at. But it's just something about this Cincinnati team that wants to get in. And let's be honest, if they do get in, we know the defense isn't great, but man, can they put up some points? I don't think you want to see that offense if they get into the playoffs. So something to keep an eye on there, Steve. I think it's a pretty good game. Minus 2.5 is the spread, so that kind of tells you the story there. Two division rivals. I like this game. We'll definitely be tuning in. The Caps have an early game, so we won't have to set up the dual TVs here. We can focus in on this one later. So with that being said, Steve, give me Jamar Chase for a touchdown today, and then I was talking with a buddy of mine just last night, and I am on a an absolute fade. Get off the bus here with Najee Harris. He has been extremely frustrating for me lately. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go
very low
with
rushing prop for Najee today too.
Well, and the last time it was low, he didn't get it. I don't even think he really came close to it. So I'm done with him. I was joking with my buddy. He's a Steelers fan. And I told you, I said, man, I am done with your boy. He just keeps on screwing me. So let's give some love to Jaylen Warren. Anytime touchdown today. So we have a little parlay going on there. But Jamar Chase and Jaylen Warren are going to be the players to watch for me, Steve.
Let's see. That parlay for me pays out plus 383 for Chase and Warren. Do you think the Bengals win this game, or do you think the Steelers win?
I'm going to go with the Steelers. But there is a piece of me, Steve. I'm not going to lie. I think Cincinnati can win this game. It wouldn't surprise me.
All right. Let's see here.
But I think the Steelers pull it out in a close one.
All right. Touchdown scores today. Chase minus 165. T. Higgins minus 110. Khalil Herbert plus 110. Chase Brown plus 110. Najee plus 110. George Pickens plus 125. I like the Pickens to from Russell Wilson connection, and Wilson has been missing Pickens in the last few weeks. I think he gets right back involved tonight. He's been a really good receiver, so plus 125 for Pickens to score. Warren's plus 220. Isis is plus 320. Freiermuth plus 330. There's our boy Calvin Austin III plus 350. Gesicki plus 380. Russell Wilson plus 470. Van Jefferson plus 550. Mike Williams plus 650. The defenses, Cincinnati 7-1. Pittsburgh 7 plus 750. Burrow plus 850. Cordero Patterson 10-1. We saw him with the goal line carry last week. And then you got the tight ends for Cincinnati. Hudson 11-1. Drew Sample 11-1. Darnell Washington, the Pittsburgh tight end, is 14-1. Connor Hayward 16-1. The Najee Harris prop, I mentioned that. He is at 45.5. And man, that makes me want to take it over, but now you're scaring me, Dave. Jaylen Warren 40.5. Russell Wilson 14.5. I feel like I can get back on board with Russell Wilson's running yards. He's been doing that on purpose. For 25 yards or more, he's plus 260 today. Joe Burrow rushing yards for 25 yards for him is at plus 490. Or that's an interesting one just because of the Steelers' defense alone. He can feel the pressure of Watt. He got sacked a few times last week as well. He would have been better off trying to get himself out of the pocket and try to, get some yards on the ground and find himself with grass on the back of his jersey from getting pinned down 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Let's see here. Wow. How about this, Dave? Najee Harris. This is everything you said against. 5 rushing yards in each quarter is plus 250. He can't do that. That's an interesting one. Receiver props. Jamar Chase, 93.5. T. Higgins, 74.5. Pickens, 67.5. Freiermuth, 34.5. Calvin Austin, 31.5. Isis, 28.5. Gesicki, 29.5. Jaylen Warren, 21.5. Najee Harris, 7.5. The Najee receiving yards were there for me last week. T. Higgins was a beast. I'm wondering if he keeps his momentum going. He's plus 220 for 100 yards. Chase, to get to his big payout number, he needs to get to 150 always for that. Plus 570 for that. Plus 260 for 125 or more. Yeah, I guess there's a case where the Bengals just do kind of come in here and light it up through the air. I mean, that's what Burrow does. Man, this is cold weather. I just like the Steelers at home here. I mean, we're talking early January football now. So I just don't know if we're going to get I don't know if we're going to get Burrow enough time here to peel that ball down the field in these cold conditions. I have a feeling these guys might get home. Let's see. What do we have for sacks? TJ Watt minus 140 for a sack. I would bet that, to be honest. Alex Highsmith is minus 125 for him. Cam Hayward plus 146. And to get an interception, Minka Fitzpatrick is 5-1. Dante Jackson for the Steelers plus 490. Geno Stone 7-1. Jordan Battle 9-1. Deshaun Elliott 8-1. Cameron Sutton for the Steelers 11-1. I could see a Burrow turnover. So those numbers are tempting. Like a Minka at 5-1 really is. Can you parlay that with a TJ Watt sack? I don't think that you can. Not on my book anyway. But that'd be I think on some books you're probably able to. So that's a fun little bet maybe. If you want Steelers defense, take Watt minus 140 and Fitzpatrick 5-1 for an interception. Passing props in this game, Wilson 231.5, Burrow 284.5. They're both over under 1.5. Actually, Wilson's over 1.5 plus 104. Burrow over 2.5 plus 154. Burrow passing touchdowns, 3 for him is at plus 152. And Russell Wilson for 3 is at plus 400. All right. Anything else on this game you like, Dave?
No, Steve, I'm going to have to look and find some stuff. I do like that defensive stuff. That is interesting. And you know what? Let's throw a little ball out there, a little curveball. We'll make you laugh here, Steve. Let's get a little special teams love. How about Cade York for 2 field goals today, plus 120?
Wow. Is that exactly 2 or more?
Over 1.5.
Over 1.5. And I got his, let's see. I have his points at 6.5. So that's about the same thing with a touchdown. And Chris Boswell is at 7.5. And this game matters with this stadium matters, Dave. I mean, if there's any kind of home field advantage, you're taking a disadvantage with the away kicker.
Yeah. Yep.
Just saying that.
Well,
not saying that New York's going to kind of scuff it aside here.
I think it's, worth some kind of oddball play.
The 2 touchdown scores, that's one thing we didn't go over in this game. I still don't have them popped up on the Bengal game. But we have Chase on the Raven game. Chase is plus 390. Higgins 6-1. Najee 7-1. Chase Brown plus 750. Khalil Herbert plus 750. Pickens 9-1. Jalen Warren 20-1. Isis 32-1. Freiermuth is at 33-1. Gesicki is at 38-1. Calvin Austin 39-1. Russell Wilson is at 60-1. So what we'll do, Dave, is let me rotate another ticket. My man Allah likes Burrow for 3 passing touchdowns. Higgins for 6 catches. Chase for 8 catches and a touchdown. Lamar Jackson's rushing yards 40 or more. Derrick Henry for the first touchdown. Mark Andrews touchdown. And Zay Flowers 4 catches. Rotate tickets. And then let's just do today, Dave. Give me your best 2 touchdown scores. Let me go ahead and cue up our sounder. And we'll just take a look at these 2 games for 2 touchdowns. I think I can come up with 1 or 2. We can take a shot on.
Yeah.
Why don't you get your numbers up for the Ravens game if you have 2 touchdown scores? They're up for me now.
I think I do.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I do.
Johnny. 4 weeks. 20 papers, that's $2 plus tip.
Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry.
Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
I give you 2 traps and a Ric Flair.
It's a jungle out there. You got to look out for number 1, but don't step at number 2.
Utah, give me 2.
And Jimmy 2 times, who got that nickname because he said everything twice, like...
I'm going to go get the papers,
All right, Dave, give me a couple 2 touchdown score potentials here.
All right, we're going to go with a longer shot here. Nelson Aguilar, 55-1. He's going to get one from Lamar, and then he's going to get one from the backup as well when they're really just putting the smack down on these guys. Other than that, I think you got to go Derrick Henry with your short shot. He gets two of them in the first half.
All right. I'm going to take a look at Isaiah Likely. I mentioned him before. I think he's going to play the whole game. Thus, he's where maybe Mark Andrews might not. Derrick Henry may not. Zay Flowers may not. But Likely will still play that whole game. So I'm going to take a shot on Likely at 18-1. And I'm also going to take a shot on George Pickens for the Steelers. Russell Wilson will find him in the end zone. Pickens at 9-1. And then Likely at 18-1. And that ticket pays out. Let's see here. $10 to win $1,890. How about that? So we'll go ahead and lock that in. I'll go ahead and play that now. So we're invested in 2 touchdown scores there. Long shots, Keaton Mitchell. Well, that's not even a long shot. 20-1. If you like Cleveland, there's Jerry Jeudy, 60-1. Dave. So an old Aguilar, Jerry Jeudy, 2 touchdown ticket. What does that pay? Let's see. Because Aguilar is a guy who could sneakily get 2 for sure. So I definitely like that angle.
Right.
Put it this way, $2.50 on an El Cheapo pays $2,150 for Mr. Aguilar and Jerry Jeudy if Zappy can somehow get off here. All right.
We're going to have to play that.
Your best bets for today.
So let's see. All right, best bets of today are going to be.
And then we'll take a little bonus hockey look since we have a couple minutes.
Let's see. What do I like today? I'm going to go with the Ravens minus 12.5 on the first half spread. And then we're going to go with nope, that is the wrong ticket. Henry and Jeudy to get in that little same game 5-1 parlay.
All right. I'm going to take the Ravens team total points over 30.5. Excuse me. And I'll probably stretch that up to over 34.5. I'm also going to take Keaton Mitchell and Isaiah Likely for a touchdown. Actually, the both of them just to score by themselves is almost 9-1. So that's not too shabby. And then I'll also, you know what? I should probably throw Derrick Henry in there for his birthday at minus 210. So a 3-player touchdown, Likely, Keaton Mitchell, and Derrick Henry pays 16-1. I'll go ahead and use a little bit of a bonus bet on that right now and get that locked in for today because that'll be a nice little free roll for tomorrow of $10 to win $160. How about that, Dave? In fact, we'll go $12 to win $191.62. And I'll take Lamar Jackson passing yards under today as well. I'll throw that into something, some kind of under parlay we can continue through the weekend with under 203.5 passing yards for Lamar Jackson. All right. And in this other game, my best bets, give me Pickens for a touchdown. Give me, you know what? I'll take T. Higgins for a touchdown at minus 115. I'll go anti-Dave and take Najee Harris for a touchdown at plus 110. Give me the Steelers minus 5.5 on the alt line, which is going to pay out. Let's see here. Alternate spread Steelers minus 5.5 is at plus 235. We do that because in case we get a walk-off touchdown in overtime, we don't need to sweat it. So we'll take the plus 235. Steelers win this game. Final score today, to me, 31-17. Dave, that's what I'm going to give you for a score.
All right. I
like the Steelers. I like Pickens. I'll throw Higgins in there for a Cincinnati Delio 2. Cold gold game in Pittsburgh. All right. Anything else on the NFL?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right, so we'll get to the rest of that slate tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But don't worry, me and Nephew Dave come on about 9:45, 10 o'clock, and hit the full slate. So unless you want more Dave Del Grande, if you're up early, obviously if you're up early, you have nothing to do. I mean, this is automatically what the show is meant for, is to turn us on at 7 o'clock in the morning when nothing else is happening. I'll be going over everything. I'll do a little art of making a ticket tomorrow. We'll do the sneaky plays again since it's a sneaky week. And we have a good hour-plus conversation, I think hour and a half, with Dave Del Grande on all kinds of good wagering angles for tomorrow. And we'll know even more. We'll have to stay right on top of it, Dave, with the actives and actives, and we'll make sure the Ant-Man is in here as well. Let's do a little National Hockey League since we do our show on Monday nights, What the Puck is Going On, which airs at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've had a weak Monday slate, but we've been looking at the Tuesday games as well and just generally talking about the state of the NHL and getting you prepped for the week. Sounds like we have a soccer goal in the other room. I'm going to guess that's Aston Villa, since that's the team that was on. Let's see. NHL for today. Rangers and Capitals. Wow, the struggling Rangers are in D.C., Dave. 12 noon start. So you're going to go with your home Caps here?
Over 3.5 goals.
Over 3.5 team goals. The goalies for this game are Jonathan Quick. How about that? And Logan Thompson. Sanosha Sturkin. Good opportunity for the Caps to get 3.5
I think
goals.
he's hurt too, actually, Steve.
Oh, is he really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, like IR hurt. So they might be.
Yeah, we need. There's been some injuries. We need to get back. We didn't do the injuries last week. We got to do it this week.
No, we definitely did not.
The Devils and the Sharks is a 4:00 Eastern game, 1:00 Pacific. The Devils have been struggling on the West Coast, so I think I'll avoid them, especially as a minus $400 favorite against San Jose, who can win games randomly. I just feel like San Jose is a little bit better than the Blackhawks of the world. But you have a play on that?
No, Steve. I don't think I'm going to play on that one. I very much agree with you. It hasn't been the best West Coast trip for the Devils. And you know what? The Sharks are sneaky, man. I think they beat Tampa Bay a night or two ago, and
they did.
That's a quality win.
Yep.
So the Sharks, I think, are that team where you bet against them and they end up surprising you, and for that reason, I'm going to stay away.
Yeah, you're getting a good price on the Sharks if you want them to win this game tonight. It will be Tampa. It would be Toronto or nothing for me with the game with Boston. I still don't trust the Bruins, but they could keep this a lower scoring game and slow down Toronto's offense. So I'll probably avoid that. But Toronto goals would be the one thing I would look at potentially, but at over 3.5 plus 120, I'd rather see over 2.5 minus 165 or something. So I'll pass on that game. What's your bullet point there? Anything?
Nah, Steve, that's a stay away from me. But the total is 5.5. With these two teams, the game does kind of scream under, but that's when they open it up. So at 5.5 at minus 135, I wouldn't be afraid to take a shot on that.
All right. Let's see here. Canadians and Avalanche. Montreal coming off a back-to-back. They lost at Chicago last night. Now they'll play in altitude. So you got to figure, even with a feisty team like them, that Colorado will be a tough matchup for them playing in altitude. So I would look at the Avalanche in that one, but it's minus 330. I'm sure you agree there.
Yep.
Right. The Jets have been struggling a little bit. They're minus 205 against the Red Wings, who had a nice win over Pittsburgh the other night, 5.5. I think you can probably take the Jets team goals at home. You probably agree with that, right?
Yeah, I took them minus 1.5 at plus 130.
Yeah, there you go. Good price on that. Wild and Hurricanes, two teams are similar defensive style, grinded out type of hockey teams. So you would think that's a natural type of under game on my end. Your thoughts there?
5.5 is the number. If you look at the Caps versus the Wild, which was their last game, they win 4-3 in a shootout. So, I Carolina has been letting me down though. I think I had them a couple times. They haven't been scoring much. So under 5.5 at plus 105.
I think I could get on board with the over in St. Louis and Columbus. Both of these teams somewhat hot as far as scoring goals. And Columbus plays higher scoring games at home. The Blues have been nice. Good play. In fact, they win last night at home against Ottawa with 4 goals and a shutout. But I'll take it over in Columbus and St. Louis. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Or even Columbus team goals have been surprisingly doing pretty well.
I'll take a look at Dallas goals over Utah. Utah, stingy team. You got to give them some accolades, but still Dallas has them outclassed every time they've played. So give me Dallas with their goals at home. Your thought there?
Yeah, Steve, I think that's probably the angle. I stayed away from this one looking at the slate here this morning. I don't know, just not an attractive game for me. The Stars at home, that should be the play, minus 1.5 at plus 140. They can beat Utah by 2, but as you mentioned, they're stingy and they don't quit on you. So I don't really like this game here, Steve. I think it's a stay away, but I think your angle is probably right.
Kings and the Lightning are a good game. I'll stay away from that. Let's see. I'll just go over all of them, and then you can tell me what you think. The last couple games here, 4 games. Edmonton's at Seattle. Edmonton, they won 3-2 over Anaheim last night, so this will be a back-to-back. And, man, if you bet the under in the Anaheim Ducks games, you are a millionaire this year. Buffalo is at Vegas. That's probably one of the better plays on the board with Vegas. And the Predators winning last night on the road. Just their 4th road win of the season at Vancouver. They'll be at the Flames. Let's see if they can make it back-to-back wins and try to turn things around once and for all here on the West Coast, this Canadian portion of the trip with Nashville. So of those 4 games, anything you like?
I like the Kings. Tampa, I think you got to pick on them in this spot a little bit, losing to San Jose the way they did. They didn't score much in that game. So give me the Kings. They're a tough team. The Preds are on a back-to-back. I think that's a stay away. I don't ever know what we're going to get from Calgary. They're just that oddball team. They're up, they're down. They're just kind of all over the place for me. I don't like it. Sabres and the Knights at home. I like the over 6.5 play in that one. I think these two teams can probably get it going. And then I took a Edmonton Oilers minus 1.5 puck line play as well, plus 140 for that.
All right. And I see here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take here are going to be my bets. And I'm going to throw Lamar Jackson's under 203.5 passing yards on this as well. but I'll take the Golden Knights straight up money line. I'll take the Stars. I'll take the Jets. I'll take the Avalanche. I'll take the Capitals, and I'll take over 6.5 goals with the Blues and the Columbus Blue Jackets. $7.50 for all that. Pays a measly $200, but we'll go with it. All the heavy favorites with a little Capitals sprinkled in, a little Lamar Jackson under, and the over 6.5 with St. Louis and Columbus. I will not throw Jersey on that ticket, so we'll not do that. All right, Dave, what are your 1 or 2 best plays in hockey?
So let's see. I have that queued up right here. Have Caps over 3.5 is plus money today. The Jets minus 1.5. Oilers minus 1.5. Paired with that Ravens first half spread. And another play that's not doing me too well. Steve, I'll tell you real quick. The Everton goalie is making me a loser right now. Lots of chances, but he has been solid in the goal.
Okay. All right. Nice. Good to hear. My soccer bets have gone a little awry this morning. Always missing 1 or 2 teams needing just one more goal, and that seems to be the case this morning as well. Okay, Dave, we'll wrap it up. We'll get on out of here. We'll flash some more tickets as we do the credits. Let's see here. Here's a good one I built. I'll go over it just real quick for today and tomorrow. Keaton Mitchell, touchdown. I'm going to get crazy. Steelers alt line, minus 12.5. Tomorrow, I'll look for Emmanuel Wilson. He's a Green Bay running back for 2 touchdowns. I'm going to take the Falcons over 34.5 team points. I'll take the combined over 51.5 points with the Jets and the Dolphins. And I'll throw Justin Jefferson on top of that for 2 touchdowns himself. So all of that mixed together on the round robin. That ticket's on the screen right now. And then there you go. Get a quick screenshot of it if you're looking at it. And then I'll go to one more, which we'll play in tomorrow. All these guys for 2 touchdowns on the round robin. George Pickens, Drake London, Dontavian Wicks, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, and Devin Achane, all for 2 touchdowns tomorrow. When Jonathan Taylor pops up, I'll be taking 2 touchdowns for him and Brian Robinson Jr. as well. All right, Dave, we're on for tomorrow. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll queue up our house band, the Pie Tasters. We want to thank them for being a part of the show always. That is our Saturday edition of the Round Robin. Fun little morning for the last 2.5 hours. See, we can talk 2 football games for 2.5 hours, Dave. How about that?
That makes me wonder how tomorrow's slate is going to run.
We'll be knee deep into it for sure. So everyone have a good Saturday. I know it's cold out there wherever you are in this country. So keep warm and enjoy some football. We will talk to you tomorrow morning. Good luck.